He trundled out his list of astonishingly unqualified candidates for cabinet posts, at least 3 of whom have previously vowed to eliminate the agencies they would now oversee. His chief strategist is a white supremacist, alt-right bigot, and Trump has put him on the National Security Council. He announced his national security advisor pick, a former general who was extreme enough to have been forced to resign from the Defense Intelligence Agency and who was foolish enough to have habitually retweeted insane stuff. He put a gag rule on multiple agencies of government and fired both the acting attorney general and the acting director of immigration enforcement. Then the Muslim ban was announced, and we showed up at airports by the thousands in solidarity with refugees and immigrants. Lawyers toted their laptops to airports and gave free help to those stuck there. No way will stand for crushing a presidential heel into the face of the Statue of Liberty. Trump's Supreme Court Justice nominee is so far to the right that when he was in high school, he joked about founding a club called, get this, Fascism Forever, although the Daily Mail claims he really did it. That's a keenly important attitude for a megalomaniac president's Supreme Court justice, but not so much for the rest of us. It's time to stiffen senatorial spines. Call your senators and tell them. Then let's not forget that Trump's Secretary of State is great buddies with our sworn enemy Vladimir Putin, who is stepping up military aggression in the Ukraine. At the same time, Trump is removing sanctions on Russia. And Trump has already insulted the leaders of at least 4 of our allies, Mexico, Australia, Germany, and Canada. We're distracted by the blizzard of substantial issues pouring from the White House, none of which appears to have been thought through, but which in the aggregate keep us engaged in a frenetic readjustment of our focus. So we miss the political coup that's underway, and that is the real deal. And it's incrementally happening by keeping us distracted. The open door to the coup is the next misdirection, and it is going to have global consequences for decades. On February 1st, National Security Advisor Mike Flynn came to the White House daily briefing and made a belligerent threat to Iran in the wake of their having tested a ballistic missile. He put the Iranian government on notice. That's how he phrased it, on notice. That doesn't leave us much room for the U.S. to maneuver if the Iranians launch another missile. That's exacerbated by President Trump having fired nearly all of our State Department staff, all the way down to those who issue visas. Those now gone were the folks in charge of diplomacy, which, as you'll recall, is what we formerly used to avoid war. Here's an historical reference. George W. Bush came to the White House determined to take down Saddam Hussein. Whether that was because that dirty varmint said something bad about Bush's daddy, or because he just figured Saddam was too bad to stay in power, or whether he thought he could remake the Middle East in the democratic image of America, we likely will never know. What we do know is that he seized upon the tragedy of 9/11 and blamed Saddam, saying he was in cahoots with Al-Qaeda, which was nonsense because Al-Qaeda is fanatically religious, and Saddam was secular and seen by Al-Qaeda as apostate. Then he also told us that Saddam had weapons of mass destruction, all evidence to the contrary be damned. The point is that Bush lied. He manufactured reasons to start a war, and it had nothing to do with our national security. And we're seeing Trump do that same thing right now. Clearly, we don't want Iran to have either ballistic missile or nuclear weapon technology. This has to be dealt with. But leaving ourselves no tools but military action ensures more war with no way out. And Flynn, having immediately gone public with a threat that sounds a lot like a schoolyard taunt, leaves the Iranians no way to back down while saving face. Alternatives to war have all but vanished. This is all complicated by our president being incapable of reassessing, or admitting he made a mistake, or acknowledging that he is anything but infallible. And the smartest person, I'm speaking to myself about foreign policy because I have a very smart brain. Just remember that he told us that he knows more than the generals and our judges and the climate scientists and all our diplomats and all our negotiators and all our education experts call him the godlike Kim Jong-Trump. Trump is edging us to the precipice of another war that has nothing to do with our national security. The war dead will stay dead, and real people will grieve, and we will stay mired in the death and destruction and debt. And Trump has his reason. He will use our mass protests against war, and yes, we will protest, as sufficient reason to declare martial law. All of this, the discrimination, the dismantling of our government institutions, gag rules and firings, stealing the Supreme Court, the insulting of our allies and giving relief to our avowed enemy, and the coming war itself. All of these distractions exist so that this president can become the American dictator. Then the coup will be complete and our democracy will be over. In other news, Reuters is reporting that President Trump is removing white supremacist alt-right groups like the KKK, Aryan Nation, and the neo-Nazis from the National Terror Watch List. Read the report, that's a link of which is in the blog, and follow all the way down to the chart, and you'll see that these groups are far more likely to commit terror in America than Al-Qaeda-inspired groups. I'm Jack Alshuler.